Hello and welcome Techno Freaks. My name is Sandeep Kumar and let's get started with cybersecurity basics. This is our first module of this course. Now let's go. Now I will tell you why security matters. So number one, hackers will be prepared even if you are not. Like even if you are not prepared, you are not prepared of all. Like some people are like, we don't care about security. Like what is security to us? Like screw security. We don't care about security. Like if you don't care about security, if you don't give thought to security, then it doesn't matter to the hacker. The hacker will always be prepared. The hacker will always be one step ahead of you, and you have to be prepared for that. Like if you aren't prepared, the hacker will be two steps ahead of you, and that'd be even bad. So a hacker is always prepared to take your data and sell it to others. Like a hacker's goal is gaining data. So even if you are not prepared, then hacker will be prepared. So the best thing to do here is to be prepared yourself. So the hacker is always a little bit ahead of you, but not too bit ahead. So that's the first point here. So now moving to the second point, your data is more valuable than you think. So this is a big myth and a big misconception that people have in their minds. So what people think is that our data is not valuable. Like we are not big CEOs, we are not celebrities, we are not some famous person that our data is not valuable at all. Like we can post our pics and only the guys in our neighborhood will recognize us, and our data and everything, it's not valuable. So if it's not valuable, it's not meant to be protected. But what this is a myth. This ends right here. This is a myth. And now what the fact is that your data is very, very valuable to the companies. Your data as a human is your footprint on the internet. Like you are nothing but your data. You are only your data on the internet. You only exist in the form of data. So that's why companies actually are willing to buy your data from the companies. They buy your data from companies for big amount of money because they want it for ad. So ad revenue is a big form of revenue for those people. So if they have tailored ads, like if your data is provided to them, they will know what you like. And if they know what you like, they will be able to discern more about how you are, and they will make a virtual profile of you. They will make a copy, they will make a replica of you in their system. So your data is very, very valuable because your opinions reflect the opinions of your entire community. So your entire community stands to be vulnerable if you think your data is not valuable. So you have to keep that in mind. So your data is more valuable than you think. Now let's move to the third point here. Buying back your reputation costs more than the price of security. Like this is also an important point. Like take an example of a company. They'd be like, no, we don't want security, we'd just be focusing on earning our money, and they just developing their products, but their products are very vulnerable, but they are very popular. So imagine a company like that. They're making products, they are very vulnerable, but they are very popular, and a hacker just comes along and hacks it. So if something is very popular, you are bound to trust it. So the next person will trust the company, they will trust it. And like if there's a website and it tells you to enter your password, so what you do is most people keep the same password for every single site. So what you do is that enter the same password on their website, but what happens is that that website is not secured. So what happens is that they leak your password, they leak your data, the entire database is then dumped and then readable in plain text. So what happens is that their reputation goes down, and reputation in this society is very, very valuable. It's even more valuable than money, and if that goes down, then that can never be brought up. Like Samsung, Apple, big companies like that, they have not recovered from their mistakes that they made back in 2016, 2017. Reputation is something that you can never bring back. So the price of security is a bit too high. Security professionals, they do take money. Like what's the reason security professionals make so much? They do take money, but then that money, if you compare it to bringing your reputation back, which happens almost never, that's a valid compromise to make. So you should always invest in security than buying back your reputation, because your reputation is much more valuable than you think. So going back to our final point, why security matters. Security is not just an IT problem, it can make or break a business. Another common misconception that most companies have is that security is only needed in IT companies. Like our company does not have computers, we don't have computer software, we don't work in IT industry, so we don't need security, right? And you might think that too. Like if your company is a software company, if your company is a security company, then it might need security. But if a company is like a normal business, like a normal product based company, pharmaceuticals, fruits, vegetables, whatever take, it does need security. Because even if it's not an IT platform, it is connected to IT in a way. We are living in a digital world. In this digital world, everything is connected to IT, whether you know it or not. You must have an online presence if you go ahead. And even if you are not linked to IT, something in your business is linked to IT. And that is something that the attacker can take vulnerability of, and he can take advantage of it, and he can make or break your business. And make and break is a very important word here. Like, your business can go down or it can go up based on the security and based on the trust of people. So don't think this is only an IT problem. This is your problem. Security is one of the most important, overlooked and underrated issues in today's world, and you must treat it with importance. And that is why it can make or break your life. Now, moving on. Taking in mind the current pandemic going on, the COVID-19 pandemic that's going on, and the cyber pandemic that's going on, that's nobody's business. Like, nobody's even caring about the cyber pandemic that's going on. So most people understand the biological pandemic, right? You would understand the biological pandemic, and you would understand if I told you in medical terms. So let's compare the biological pandemic and cyber pandemic side by side. So let's go. Infection rate. So the virus infection rate, WHO, it says the average number of people that one virus infects. So flu, SARS, corona infects 2.5. So at the same time, in the cyber pandemic, malware infection rate, that the number of hosts that one host with a malware infects, is that cyber attacks is more than 27. Slammer doubles in size every 8.5 seconds. And code rest, 2,000 new hosts per minute. Do you even know how much that number is? So people are scared of corona. Like, corona only infects 2.5 people, but this infects 2,000 people in like 1 minute. So this is much, much higher than corona, but it is still overlooked by people. So next, infection prevention. So how do you prevent this infection? So how do you prevent corona? The best treatment is vaccination. The best treatment to prevent infection with these diseases is vaccination. You would have to take a vaccine. Dealing with infection, best practices are quarantine, shelter in place. Like, if you don't have vaccines, then the only thing you can do is quarantine, shelter in place, isolation, contact tracing. So everybody knows, because they are aware about infection prevention, and that's why we have managed to control the coronavirus. But nobody is aware of the cyber pandemic and how to treat it, the practices to treat it. So the best treatment for treating cyber pandemic is real-time prevention, and the best practices are continuous process of quarantine. So quarantine is basically, what is quarantine, guys? Quarantine is staying in your home, staying isolated, staying away. It's like staying in a separate box from people. It's like staying in a separate box, and you are in that box and everyone's aside. So this can be also implemented in the computer also by sandboxing and microsegmentation. What this basically does with zero trust and segregation. Segregation is basically separating the actual virus from the computer. So what basically does is that the antivirus actually quarantines the actual object, and it can prevent the infection from spreading because it's trapped in that box. So that's how the quarantine of the cyber pandemic is taken care of. So we know about the quarantine of the biological pandemic, but the cyber pandemic is a little less known. Now, safety best practices. So the best practices until vaccination. So we don't really have vaccination for corona. So what are our common best practices? It is wearing a mask, having good hygiene, washing our hands with sanitizer, washing our face, washing our feet when we come back from outside, social distancing. So everybody knows that. We hear it in our phone every single day. So safety best practices for biological pandemic, everyone knows that. So what are the safety best practices for the cyber pandemic at the same time? Awareness. The first thing that is the best practice for the cyber pandemic is awareness, because you have to be aware of what is going on. Like, you have to be aware of what is going on. You have to think before you click. Like, if you see a link, I know it is very tempting to click on it. It is very colorful. It is saying free iPhone 11 Pro, iPhone 12 Pro, whatever. It is saying that it's gonna give you $1 million, but you don't have to click on it. You have to think. You have to think, why is someone gonna give me an iPhone? Why is someone gonna give me a huge TV? It doesn't make sense. So you have to be aware that phishing links come in this way. So you have to think before you click. You cannot click just like this. And cyber hygiene. So you practice hygiene. You wash your mouth, you brush your teeth, you wash your hands. So you can also cyber hygiene your computer. You have to apply patches that whatever operation system that you're using, they come with patches. And what the patches are are these maintenance patches. They patch security issues as soon as they are released. And compliance, you have to comply with whatever hygiene your computer lies. So you have to keep your computer in good health so it is very less vulnerable to being hacked. And asset distancing, network segmentation, and multi-factor authentication. These all are ways where how we can separate ourselves from hackers. So multi-factor authentication, this is also known as two-factor authentication and stuff like that. So what this does is give several layers to your security. So even if a hacker managed to break one layer of security, he has to face another. Segmenting your network away from the hacker. So the hacker has to make extra effort to get into your network. So these are all ways of distancing yourself from the hacker. So if you are standing close to the hacker, it's no point. Like, you can get easily hacked, but you're standing far from the hacker and you have all these layers in between, it becomes a little difficult for the hacker to hack your computer. So those are the best practices for the cyber pandemic. Now, how many cybersecurity attacks are there per day? 2,244 times. So that's the amount of estimated cybersecurity attacks that are going on per day. Imagine how big of a number that is. Cyber attacks occur 2,244 times per day. Imagine how much that is per minute. 92% of malware is delivered using email. As I told you, the free links and the amount of money. So like, people are very greedy for money, and that's why they do that. So 92% of malware is delivered using email. So if you are aware about email, then you can stop that 92%. We can bring that number down together. By 2023, within 3 more years, the global cybersecurity market will be worth $248.26 billion. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Cybersecurity has a lot of money. You only need passion to get into this industry, and it will reward you with billions of dollars. 71% of breaches, 71% of attacks are financially motivated. People want money, and that's why people attack. So 71%. The rest of the percent can be for personal motives, can be for revenge or whatever, but 71%, that's a majority of percent that people do it for money. And that's why cybersecurity attacks occur every day. Now, about shoulder surfing. You all must know about shoulder surfing, right? It is a very common social engineering tactic that is used by people. Like, you might not even know what shoulder surfing is, and you all might have done it at one or every point in your life. Like, once you have already done it. Like, what people do is they peek over ATMs. Like, someone's standing behind you and you're inputting your ATM password, and they're standing behind you, and what they're doing is like peeking, and they're looking at your PIN, and when your card falls out or they can see your card details, what they do is just input the same details themselves. So shoulder surfing is a very real act of social engineering, because you won't even know your password's being stolen. The person just sitting there, like, look at this photo right here. The woman's not even aware that the person is looking at her, but then he's stealing her password, and he's getting away with it. So we will learn about shoulder surfing, and we will learn about more social engineering attacks like this in further modules as we go on ahead. Now, thank you for tuning in to this first module of our course. You will learn more interesting stuff like this in the next module, so stay tuned.